Hello, everyone. This video I'm doing because I really want to address what is the buzz has been going around about domestic um, ABUSE and domestic discipline. Um, so this is the first of a four-part series. I'm going to jump right into it and share my screen. Today, I really wanted us to really get a strong understanding of how we can identify abuse in our astrology charts and how we can identify ABUSE in our tarot cards and spreads. So let me jump right to my screen. Okay, 1 second. Okay. Okay, so during this video, when you look at my slides and everything, I know we're talking about a very heavy topic. We're talking about something that a lot of us have experienced in different ways, in different forms. When I was on Tanya TKO's live, I think that was last week, and she was talking about this same topic, and you could just feel the weight and the heaviness of the energy in the room. Even though it was online, even though it was on YouTube, you could still feel the heaviness of the pain that we were all experiencing as a collective. So when you look at these slides and you see all these pictures of happy, smiling women, it's because that's what I want us to focus on, because we already know the pain. So I don't want to keep showing the same thing over and over again. Okay. So this video is for you if you want to protect yourself from domestic abuse spiritually and practically. I always want to keep it balanced. We can't be all spiritual and we can't be all practical. It's got to be a good mixture of both. Also, if you want to heal from domestic abuse spiritually or practically. Sorry for the noise in the background. Okay. So in this video, I'll be discussing why the topic of domestic abuse is coming up right now. And I'm going to be doing that by using Vedic astrology. If you're following along, if you want to look at your chart, your own personal chart while we're doing this, you want to know your birth time, your birthday, and your birthplace, you can go to astroseek.com and look in the I just put Astro-Seek Vedic astrology in the search. It'll come up, put in your information. But when they ask you what kind of housing system that you want, click whole, because that's what I go off of. So you're using sidereal or Vedic astrology, and you're using the whole science system. So how to identify an abusive husband in your chart, that's what we'll be talking about. How to identify tarot cards that represent abuse. And I'll also show you a spread that points out what you might need to do if you're in a toxic relationship. Okay, so we're moving on. This is what I'll be discussing in videos to come. Like I said, this is part 1 of 4. And then I'll also be adding extra videos onto it. So just on the side. Okay. So I'll be discussing in video 2, I'll be discussing red flags and how to know when it's time to leave. In video 3, I'll be discussing your options to protect and heal, spiritually and practically. In video 4, we'll be setting goals and strategies to protect and heal from abuse in the future and right now. So that being said, um, okay, we're going to keep going. I was trying to think, I was going to say something, but I lost my train of thought. Okay, so this is why you should listen to me. I'm just been talking. I haven't been explaining nothing. So the reason you should listen to me is I have experienced this topic. Okay. I'm not going to get deep into my story because I really want you to get the information, but I know where you're coming from is what I want you to know. I have been a life coach for over 9 years. I've been certified to offer counseling for narcissistic abuse, and I'm an astrologer and a reader. I don't just read tarot and not tarot. I put tarot and oracle together as tarot. But I don't just read tarot cards and oracle cards. I read, like, I will read shells, I'll read clouds, I'll read energy, I'll read chakras, like whatever I can read, I'm gonna read it. But I'm gonna focus on tarot today. Moving on. So, why is this topic, you see it on the screen, coming up right now? And this is what I believe, okay? It's because during the time when the topic came up strong, the video that someone put out who really brought up the topic of, they phrased it as domestic discipline. This is what has been having everyone in the circles that I'm in on YouTube really, really buzzing and talking about it now. But the day that that video came out, Mars was in Cancer. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you in the sky, Mars was in Cancer, not in birth chart. So this is what the chart looked like on that day. Okay, so the energy of men wanting to abuse and control women to hold them back. This is the energy. If you look at the chart where you see the 11th house, we see the number 11. Then you see Mars and you see Venus, and it's in Cancer. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you the all these planets and signs. They really have so many various meanings, but I want to focus on the ones that stood out to me when I was paying attention to the energy of the conversations that are being had right now, and the sky. Okay, so Venus is the green symbol. It's a circle with like a cross pointing downward. That's Venus, and it's like, again, in the sign of Cancer, so you can see it. I should have circled it. My bad. I'm gonna get better at this. Okay. I should have circled it. Okay, so Venus represents young women and women in general. Okay, we are the topic right now when we're talking about this. Mars, which is right next to Venus, okay, it's red. Mars is the red symbol right next to Venus, pointing upward. It's like it's pointing right at it. So Mars represents young men, war, and physical abuse. These are just, again, some of the meanings of these planets. Saturn, which is very important because it's right across. If you look at the 5th house down here, if you look at the 5th house, let me see if I can use my. Okay, so yeah. So if you look at the 5th house right here, you see Saturn. This is Saturn. Now, Saturn represents older men. Saturn also represents restrictions and limitations. Okay, that's Saturn right here. Now, Pluto, right next to Saturn, right here, is retrograde. This is what's going on in the sky right now. And Pluto represents, long story short, control. Okay, so again, this is Venus, women. This is Mars, young men, war, and physical abuse. So you put all those together, okay? And this is what I'm saying. You have the energy of men that was in the sky the moment when the video that created this domino effect of everyone talking about this topic now. That was what was in the sky. And it's actually still the same right now. The planets moved a little bit. Mars and Venus moved a little bit, but basically everything is still the same. This is the energy right now. Men, all these are males, okay? Mars, young men. Saturn, older men. Pluto, control. All up against poor little tink tink Venus. We're not poor. All this is happening for a reason, but I'm going to move on, okay? So that is why this topic is happening right now. Now, how to find domestic abuse in your astrology chart. First, we'll look at the combinations of Mars, okay? So Mars in astrology is responsible for jealousy, anger, lust, and aggression and violence. Before I go on, I wanted to mention that what I'm reading right now is not I'm sharing this information, but it's not my information. I can't remember the name of the person, but their information is in the description box. And if you look at the blog that they made, they have a lot more information than what I'm sharing, but I wanted to keep it streamlined so everyone can get it and get to work on it. But if you want to go even deeper, you can click the link in the description box, and then you'll see even more ways to get an understanding of if your husband is abusive or violent. Okay, so Mars in astrology is responsible for jealousy, anger, lust, and aggression and violence. Mars has lots of destructive power. Mars is responsible for violent behavior in an individual. So if you have Mars in your first, second, fourth, seventh, or 12th house, this produces a Mangal dasha, which is some way or the other concerned with marital disputes and domestic violence. I'm going to try to break this down really, really quick. So your first house, where it says if you have Mars in your first house represents your life. So if you have Mars in your first house, then you will experience violence and abuse in some way. If it's with some other planets, then it might not be so much physical. It depends on the planets that it's with. It could be physical. It could be just any type of abuse your whole life until you learn how to stand up for yourself, and probably even afterwards. So the second house represents your family. It also represents your values, what you value. So if you have Mars in your second house, then you might experience abuse in your family, the family that you grew up in, and also maybe an attack on your values. Sometimes people try to get us to change our values or attack what we value so that we can lower ourselves and lift up what they value. So, that's just more of control and abuse. The fourth house, this represents your home again, but this could be your home as a child or your home right now, your home life right now. Okay. So you might experience abuse in your home life if it's in your fourth house. In your seventh house, it represents relationships, business, and any type of relationships. So you might experience abuse with your husband, with your partner. And I know we're talking about this in a domestic way, but you also might want to watch out for uh, like business partners, co-workers, bosses, things like that. You might want to protect yourself in that area if you have Mars in your seventh house. Now, in your 12th house, Mars represents, the 12th house represents your private life. It represents losses, things you do in secret. So if it's in the 12th house, you might experience abuse, but it could be like very covert abuse that you have to really think about. Like, it's wait a minute now, something ain't right. I think this person ain't right. You might experience abuse in that way, or it might be the type of abuse where you're being abused, but you're the only one that knows about it, and the way that this person represents themselves, nobody else might believe that you're actually getting abused by this person because it's so private. It's done very secretively and privately. Okay. So moving on. More Mars combinations. Mars aspecting the seventh house. So if Mars is aspecting the seventh house, then it's in the first house. So um, Lord indicates an aggressive and violent behavior. I don't really want to go into that. For the people who understand house lords, I just hope that you understand it. I'm not going to be teaching astrology. I just want whoever can get it to get it. So if you have Mars with Saturn, or Mars with Rahu, or Mars, Saturn, and Rahu together, and in Western astrology, Rahu is the north node of the moon. So when I say Rahu, that's what I'm talking about. So if you have these three planets together, then your partner could have hostile or violent traits. Okay, if you have Mars in the seventh house and it's aspected, that means Saturn is looking at it by Saturn, the lower animal nature of the husband is obvious, resulting in anger, vindictiveness, stubbornness, resentment, and an unforgiving nature that can be sorrow and dejection by the husband. Okay, these are seventh house combinations. Again, the seventh house represents your relationships and business. So seventh house combinations. If the seventh house Lord is in Aries, an Aries sign, a Scorpio sign, aspected or associated by Mars, it indicates violent and aggressive nature of the spouse. So I will use an example for this. Let's see, seventh house Lord in Aries, in the sign of Aries. So let's say you have Gemini in your seventh house. Okay. Gemini is ruled by the planet Mercury. So if you look at your chart and you see, okay, I have Gemini in my seventh house, then you look and see where Mercury is. If Mercury is in those signs, Mercury is in Aries or Scorpio, then you could see a violent or aggressive nature in your spouse. It's because those two signs are ruled or co-ruled. Mars is rules Aries and co-rules Scorpio. Okay. So Mars, like I said, Mars is aggressive. Mars is violent. I don't want to start mumbling. So if that's a quick something quick, but I'm going to move on. Okay. Placement of fiery separative nature planets like Sun, Mars, Saturn, and Rahu slash K2. Rahu is the is the north node of the moon, and K2 is the south node of the moon. If you have these in the seventh house, it can indicate the violent nature of your spouse. If you have Scorpio in the seventh house associated with the nodes, then their communication tools. Oh, the wrong thing is on there. So a Scorpion in the seventh house associated with the nodes, then that also shows violence and aggression. Let me move back. I was on seventh house combinations. Okay, so more seventh house combinations. Venus, if Venus and Rahu are in the seventh house, then that shows violence, because Venus represents women. It also represents relationships because it rules the seventh house. It's the planet that rules the seventh house, and it rules love. But Rahu does too much. Okay, Rahu is can be. It's all about illusions. So this might be a gaslighter. Something to think about in the seventh house, Venus and Rahu. But if the sixth and eighth placement of the lords of the ascendant are in the seventh house. So how can I explain that? So let's say you are Sagittarius rising. So if you're Sagittarius rising, which means you have Sagittarius in your first house, that means Jupiter rules your first house. It's your first house lord. Okay. It's the lord of your first house. So if Jupiter is in your sixth house, there, which represents your main struggles, your main obstacles, your daily challenges. If that's there, then you can have some problems. Also, it's the same thing if it was in your seventh house. If your seventh house lord was in the sixth or the eighth house. So if the lord of the ascendant or the seventh associated with the nodes or functional malefics, then you might have an issue there. So the lord of the ascendant or the seventh associated with the nodes, that's the south node, or the and the ninth node, the south node and the north node are the nodes, like I just talked about. And malefic planets are planets like they were already mentioned, but planets like Saturn, Mars. The sun is cruel, but I think sometimes some people look at it as malefic. What else? So that's those are the malefic ones: Saturn, Mars, Rahu, Ketu. And sometimes the sun. It depends. So aspect of at least 2 retrograde planets on the 7th house indicates violent nature in the spouse. And aspects they're just the you can look up what aspects are if you're looking at your chart. You can find out what they are. They're just places that different planets look from where they're sitting. And I don't want to say too much and be confusing. So you can just look up what aspects are. I like when we're talking about Vedic astrology, the people who I like to listen to on YouTube are KRS, Joni Patri, who else with Vedic astrology? Exotic. I like exotic astrology. I really like him. And it's so many people. I don't want to get into it, but it's a lot of different people that you can look into that'll help you understand and get a deeper understanding of what I'm talking about, because I don't really want to go into teaching it right now. So association and aspect of Saturn on the 7th house. If you have that, you might have conflicts. Conflicts may happen in married life, which can be violent in nature. Major conflicts in marital life is indicated during Saturn transit. So that's something you want to watch the sky for if you have that. So now we're on to 8th house combinations. So if you have Scorpio, this is for Scorpio or the 8th house, okay? These have warlike qualities because, like I said, they're ruled by Mars or co-ruled by Mars. And the other Scorpio and the 8th house are ruled by Mars, which is malefic, which means it teaches you lessons the hard way, basically. And the other, it's not a planet, but the node that co-rules Scorpio in the 8th house is K2. K2 also teaches lessons through transformation. And it's not always, transformation isn't always easy. It wants you to let go so you can evolve. But these planets are both, like I said before, known to be malefic, teach you things in a very difficult way. So warlike qualities, and it's more about domestic violence and family disputes. It informs us about the chances of divorce and breakup in the marital life of the native. So the 8th house reveals the height of hindrance the natives could face in their married life and in partnerships. 8th house lords represent genital organs when afflicted, resulting in sexual incompetence, and further enhances the violent nature of the partner. Okay, here we have 12th house combinations, and I think that'll be the end of it. Then we're moving on to tarot cards. So if afflictions to the 12th house may cause an immoral sexual life, resulting in domestic violence. Now, this I think is very common, and it's something I've seen a lot, is when this is what it means. One person is sexually immoral, which means they're doing things sexually that they shouldn't do. A lot of the times, this is cheating. Or they might feel guilty about the sexual things that they like to do. One or the other. Or that they're doing and just keeping a secret. Okay. So when you see people who are always accusing the other person of cheating, this is what this is talking about. They're doing something sexually immoral, or they want to do something sexually immoral. And then because it's hidden, because it's secret, they want to project it onto you and say, oh, you're the one, you're the cheater, you're any kind of bad name that they want to call you. And then that makes them feel like it's okay if they say mean words to you, hurt your feelings, even put their hands on you sometimes, because they won't address their secrets. Okay. So Mars and Saturn in the 12th house create problems in attitude and cooperation. Okay. Mars in the 12th house increases the desire for sex, but reduces the satisfaction level, resulting in extramarital affairs, causing domestic problems. Okay, that's the 12th house. Oh, okay. We still have Jupiter and Venus. Now I remember. Okay, Jupiter combinations. So if your Jupiter is afflicted or weak, it shows a very selfish nature in a partner. If your moon is in a disharmonious aspect with Jupiter, it indicates dissatisfaction in married life. Jupiter afflicted by Mars, Saturn, or Rahu indicates shrewd intelligence, ignorance, and overindulgence and conceit of the husband. Okay, Venus combinations. Afflicted or weak Jupiter shows a selfish nature of a married partner. If the moon is disharmoniously aspected with Jupiter, it indicates dissatisfaction in your married life. Jupiter afflicted by Mars, Saturn, or Rahu indicate a shrewd intelligence or ignorance or overindulgence or conceit of the husband. Okay, this is how to identify abuse with tarot cards. Okay, here we have the Eight of Swords, and I'll read the definition to you. The woman in this card is blindfolded and bound. She is seemingly trapped between eight swords, unable to see her way out. This card often comes up for the victim of abuse and represents the mental torment of knowing you must leave a situation or leave a relationship, but also feeling trapped or bound by this person. If the woman were to take off her blindfold and remove her bindings, she would see that there is indeed a way out. And while it may not be an easy path, it will eventually release her from her tormentor. This looks kind of it. I know some of us, if you've experienced abuse, and some of us might have felt this, like, I want to leave. I know he's not right, and I want to leave, but what about the kids? Or I want to leave, but I don't have the money. I want to leave, but I don't have what it takes to do things on my own. That might be this. It might be this right here, feeling like knowing that you need to leave, but just feeling trapped and not knowing how. This was your friend. You might be really frustrated with her because it's like, she knows he's not right, but she just keeps staying there, and you don't know why. Now, this is the Devil card. Every tarot deck does not have this name like this, so you might want to check and see which card represents the Devil card in your deck, because everyone doesn't put it in there with that name. It might be under a different name. Like I had a mermaid tarot card, tarot deck, and the Devil card was represented by a vertex. It was the vertex. It wasn't the devil. So on first glance, we see a naked man and woman chained by the neck to an overbearing devil. Again, it would appear that the devil has a hold over these two people, and they are restricted in their movement. Yet the chains are only loosely fitted around the necks of these people, and freedom is there for the taking. So while this card can point to an abusive relationship that stems from a need for power and control, the victim can again escape this situation so long as they can see it for what it is. This is like the same thing, only a little deeper. This stands, if it didn't have to do with abuse, the devil card, I always see it as being addicted to something that's not good for you. And sometimes we have to really be honest with ourselves and know when something isn't good for us and know when to let it go. Sometimes people are really addicted to abuse, not because they love it, but a lot of times it's what they know. You know, a lot of us who have experienced abuse, we didn't just become adults and then, here's the abuse. The seeds were planted in us as children to be vulnerable to that. So that's where the addiction can come in. Okay. Moving on. King of Swords, reversed. Okay, the King of Swords wields significant power. He is often in a position of authority, and he uses his status and intellect to seek the outcomes that suit him best. Reversed, this is not a nice guy to have around. He is abusive with his power, and he seeks to undermine anyone that threatens his position of authority and control. He may be a partner, boss, father figure, and he is here to make life very difficult. Okay? This card is ruled by the element air. Air represents communication and the mind. Okay? So when you're dealing with the King of Swords, he might not be physically abusive, but he might really know how to use his words to cut. You see his sword right there. His words could possibly cut you like a knife, and that's to cut you down and undermine you so that you know and have in your mind he's the boss, not you, and you better not step out of line or you're going to get cut like a knife again with his words. Okay. Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords speaks of abuse from a different angle. Here we see a man lying face down with 10 swords stabbed in his back. He has been deceived and betrayed by the people he thought he could trust, and now he suffers deeply as a result. Thus, this abuse is more reflective of betrayal and deception to the extent that it causes deep emotional pain and hurt for the victim. Definitely, if you see this, you need to seek help. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. We all need help. Everybody doesn't know that they need help. That's the problem. So this means that there's lingering pain that you still have. Even though the situation is over, you still have that lingering pain. And if you have that pain inside you, that pain of betrayal, that then you're attracting more of it to you. So in order to move on, you have to talk to somebody, a counselor, a therapist, a life coach, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, whoever you trust. I was a little hesitant in saying minister. Just somebody that someone who you can trust, somebody who doesn't have issues with abuse their own selves. You don't want to talk to, because I was hesitant at saying minister because I've heard a lot of stories of women going to their ministers or people in the church and telling them about the abuse that they're experiencing. And then because of their religious beliefs, the minister will tell the victim to go back to the person who abused them, because from their standpoint, God hates divorce. So I wouldn't recommend that you go to someone who is religious. But if you have a minister who understands the effects of abuse, some people do have that, then you might want to talk, just talk to somebody is what I'm saying. Talk to somebody, get it off you, work on healing. if you get the Ten of Swords, okay? Um, so the Chariot Reversed. The reverse Chariot may represent the tormentor of the person who is carrying out the abuse. This card often reflects someone who has anger management issues and who lets their desire for control and dominance get the better of them. They railroad, threaten, or bully others until they get their own way. If you see this card in a relationship reading along with other abuse-related cards, then you may wish to raise the issue of anger and the potential for for physical violence. This is also not, I didn't put this list together. This is from biddy.com. The link to this blog post is also in the description. Okay, Emperor Reversed. The reverse emperor is highly authoritarian and domineering. He attains his own power and status by taking away the power of others and undermining them. Thus, this reverse emperor again represents the abuser, someone who overuses and abuses authoritative power and status. He may appear as an insecure man throwing his weight around who has a need for control. There, boy. I think this is very important for us all to be aware of. If you have sons right now growing up, make sure that you're teaching them to be secure within themselves and not to try to gain security from other people, because insecure men are extremely dangerous. The emperor is the strongest man on the deck. He's not a king like the other. He's not a king of swords. He's the emperor. The emperor is the strongest, most powerful man in the tarot deck. But if you take someone who's very strong and very powerful physically, or in any way, whether it be money, whether it be, physically, whether it be intellectually, if they have power in any way and they feel insecure about themselves, they will use that power on you if you do anything to make them feel insecure. But the problem with that is anything can make them feel insecure. Anything can make them feel insecure because they're walking around acting all big and strong, but feeling like a little victim all the time. Walking around in their insecurities, in their victimhood, seeing everyone, including you, as an attacker, whether they're attacking them or not. So if you get the Emperor reversed in a reading, be careful and protect yourself. Get away if you can. Nine of Wands. In the Nine of Wands, a man is bandaged and bruised, but instead of letting himself be defeated, he is standing strong and defends himself. This may indicate physical or emotional abuse, but it also signifies that the victim is standing up for themselves and not letting themselves be put down by the abuser. So I see this card as fighting for yourself because you know that you have a purpose, because you believe in yourself, because you value yourself. So people might be trying to abuse you. This could be, I see this as like someone who they're still fighting, so they're taking abuse. You know, there's no reason to fight when you can leave. You know, so you're still in feeling, you're still in a like a victim state. You're still being abused, but you're fighting back. So this might be the person who has seen where they've made mistakes in the past with this abuser, and they want to correct those mistakes. They start fighting back, which is not, I don't suggest fighting back, especially like as far as arguments go. um I don't suggest arguing. um but this seems like a person who went through something and they've learned a little bit. Now they're starting to fight back. It could be that, could be back and forth, but that's really the more of some other cards. So I see it as that, and I saw it's something else. I say it when it comes up, but just knowing, starting to get the strength to fight, and leave, because this is 9, which means completion is coming soon. The moon reversed. The moon is representative of the psychology of the mind and uncovers the fears and illusions that torment us. Reversed, this card may indicate a very subtle, underhanded form of abuse that is occurring without the victim being fully aware of what's going on. It may be deep psychological abuse that has occurred over a long period of time. So if you've been with somebody for a long time, or you've been in the same type of relationships for a long time, or you've been experiencing the same type of abuse from when you are a child up until now, that's what this represents. You can't stay in an abusive relationship without it affecting your psychology. So it's not just okay, it's necessary to get the psychological help that you need, especially when you pull this card. Okay. Let me see. It may also represent childhood abuse that occurred a long time ago and has since been repressed in the memory of the victim. Recommend that the client seek professional help to uncover the deeper issues. And that's okay. Okay, 9 of Swords. The 9 of Swords shows a woman, head held in her hands, sitting up in her bed. She appears to be very anxious and tormented by her thoughts and mind. I see this as potential for someone who is the victim of psychological abuse or bullying. This may be someone who has been threatened repeatedly and is incredibly fearful for her well-being. This is important. Again, if you pull this card, again, talk to somebody. You really need to get out of that environment. There's no way that can be healthy. Okay, get out of that environment. 5 of Swords. The 5 of Swords is a card of conflict and arguments. In the context of abuse, this is likely to indicate verbal abuse. Okay, again, the Swords, air, communication. The type where both parties are fighting as aggressively as the other and saying hurtful and angry things to the other. Don't let anybody mess your karma up. Don't 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 do that. I thought some people feel like when they do that, they're standing their ground. They feel like when they do that, that they're let me see. Well, they feel like we know when we're I'm not talking about, let me see. Let me slow down. It's just that back and forth energy. It's very draining. If you keep doing it, it's not good for your mental health. Um, it doesn't allow the other person to see themselves, okay? Because you're fighting, they can't see how out of control and rude and lacking self-control, lacking of self-control. They can't see that in themselves. If you're every time they say something, you're getting down right back with them. Protect your energy. Walk away. Don't engage. Let them see how petty and immature they're being. Don't get down there with them. Because most of the time it happens because people who are narcissistic, they love getting you into little arguments where you were minding your business, you were happy, you were having a good day, you were enjoying yourself. Then they come in, they know they've studied how to push your buttons, and they see you happy. They're not happy. They don't like that. They start an argument with you for one reason or another. It could be because you're happy. It could be for anything. Then before you know it, your energy is depleted. You're all riled up. Your focus is off what you were doing. And all your energy is on fighting back with them. Don't do that. Don't do that back and forth, okay? Because all they're gonna say at the end is what? Well, you did it too. You said it too. Don't let them do that, okay? So the Five of Swords is a card of conflict and arguments. In the context of abuse, this is likely to indicate verbal abuse, the type where both parties are fighting and aggressively as the other and saying hurtful and angry things to one another. In this case, let me tell you something. I'm gonna finish reading this. But when I was thinking about this today, I don't like arguing. I don't like it. I don't do it. Okay. And there was two people that I was had some type of relationship with, and a problem came up, and it wasn't even a serious problem, and I don't even really think that the problem had anything to do with me, or maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I tend to ignore people when they start acting crazy. So anyway, and it was like rah, 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 rah. And I wasn't used to that. My parents weren't like that to each other. So I'm like, wait a minute, we can't just talk and be mature and have a conversation. No, we're gonna talk it out. Be real, let it out. Be real. I'm like, I am being real. I don't feel like this. I don't want to do this right now. I can stay feeling calm and clearly explain to you how I feel about the situation without acting like a wild animal like you. But it was just like, no, they didn't want to have a calm, responsible, mature conversation where two adults can communicate their thoughts and feelings back and forth and then come to a resolution. They wanted to argue and made me feel bad, or trying to make me feel bad, for not wanting to engage in that type of behavior. That's weird. So watch out for that. Okay. So those were the tarot cards. And here is the spread that you can do. Um, so this is a toxic relationship spread by Lisa Freiburg, I believe. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. But this, she also did a blog for this, and it also has 10 ways to know if you're in a toxic relationship. So that's also in the description below. Okay. So this is the spread, positions and meanings. So number one, my own pattern and role. That's what the card number one that represents your own pattern and role in the relationship. Because even when we, call ourselves victims or survivors, we still play a role. And I'm not victim blaming, but once you see the role that you played, I'm not saying, just no, I'm not victim blaming. I don't do that. But you could have played a role in some way. And so if you can introspect and look on that, then you'll see how to not do that again, or how to heal from that for future relationships. The second card, the number 2 card, represents the likely outcome if you stay. So what is the likely outcome if you stay? Number 3 represents the likely outcome if you go. Number 4 represents the ability to change in the other person. So it's basically going to let you know if this person is going to change or are they going to stay the same. If this person is, there's a difference between toxic, because we all have some traits that we have to work on that could be considered toxic, or unhealthy. I don't know about toxic, that's kind of strong, but unhealthy. But if you're dealing with someone who's a narcissist or a sociopath or a psychopath, don't worry about them changing. Okay? They're not going to do it. Okay? So focus on yourself. But the ability to change, that's how you can see that, number 4. And number 5, the last one, is what will be the backlash if you risk it and leave? What will be the backlash or the risk if you leave? Okay. So that is what I have for you. If you would like a personal reading, so we can get a deeper understanding of, the type of relationship you're in, and like I could do this prayer for you, or with my readings, I always look at astrology and I read with other things. So if you would like your own personal one, send me a email. My link, my email is in the description box, and I'm going to be doing readings here on my YouTube page with this spread, and I'm going to be doing every zodiac sign. Okay, and I'll start that tomorrow. So look out for the readings for the zodiac signs, and also look for video 2 of this series. So this next video will be more practical. So I look forward to talking to you then. Until next time, take care of yourself.